Here are your free games with Prime in June.
Battleman and Beast for survival set in the Himalayas in the open-world action-adventure shooter Far Cry 4. Then, adventure to the high seas as Pirate Guybrush Threepwood in the point-and-click adventure Escape from Monkey Island. Join the WRC Championship to win the most challenging motor racing competition in the world. Build yourself a cat cafe of your dreams in the sim game Calico. Journey with the astrologaster who uses the stars to cure the sick in 1592 London. Then follow Alice on a musical adventure in Across the Grooves. With Amazon Prime, you also get free shipping, videos, music, groceries, and more. Play your favorite games straight from the cloud on Amazon Luna. Go to gaming.amazon.com for all these free games and more. Go where the games take you.
Welcome back, everyone, to the SPL Season 9, Phase 2, Week 2, Day 3, Set 3. My name's Goran. I'm excited for this one, but of course, I want to give a shout out to Prime Gaming for sponsoring us this year, the title sponsor of the SPL this year. You've already seen what games you can get with Prime this month, but make sure that you out there are getting the most out of your Prime membership with all of the other exclusive content that Prime Gaming has to offer. If you're not a Primer yet, now I'm going to tell you, this says it might be time to become one. I'm going to tell you, it is. Absolutely. There's no like question about it. There are no qualms. It is time to become one. You can get free Twitch subs, free games and game content, free Amazon delivery, and of course all of that fun stuff you just saw in that video. So if you're not a Primer, go out there and do so. And thanks again to Prime Gaming for sponsoring us this year and for also having the Prime Gaming MVP, the most valuable Primer, who is now, for the first time this week, finally going to get to play this set, Mifflin.
Have we said who it is? Am I allowed? Do you want me to say it?
Yeah, we talked about it. We gave it out on Waiting
Oh, we
Room.
gave it out already. So we
well,
could
like,
say
he
it.
has it. It is on his head.
But you and I aren't going to say it now because we haven't yet, and I feel like it's going to continue to like build intrigue.
Yeah, and so now if you don't know, if you didn't watch Waiting Room,
keep your eyes on their headsets.
Shame on you, because come on, that's like my thing, man. That's a personal slight against me. I also, and you know, Mifflin, we're gonna dive into this. I do want to call something out though.
Please.
Dave's fun fact sheet or random fact sheet.
He has a fun
here,
fact sheet.
He brought up, it's some web page that just says random facts. I want to know how old this is because this one says the average person makes about 1,140 telephone calls each year.
It's got to be lower now.
Right? Like, I don't call anybody. I actively avoid.
Wait, 1,100 a year?
1,140. Yes.
That's like nearly
on average. I guess
that's like 4 a day.
Does it factor in telemarketers? Because those guys call a lot of people.
No, because it said make, not receive.
Oh yeah, you're right.
So that's like
but
that's
they're
about
making
4 a day.
to make a call, to receive a call. Someone has to make the call. Yeah. So they're making the call. And so look, this is inflated numbers. I think this is all fake. Most people, I'm actively avoiding it. Either way, we can look at the schedule and then their stand-ins that we got. The schedule, of course, as you can see, a couple of 2-1s, actually quite a few 2-1s this week, and then a few 2-0s so far today. The Bolts knocking down the Warriors, the Titans knocking out the Valks, and we'll see what happens here between the Scarabs and the Kings. The Scarabs coming into this week, we're on, I believe, a 7-set loss streak in a row. And so this is going to be, or yesterday was a big turnaround for them, able to at least end that. And, of course, if they can have it their way, they're not going to restart it right here either. But the Kings have been a formidable team to take down up there at 2-0. And they had a fantastic first week, Mifflin. I mean, this team looked phenomenal. But it is the Scarabs, these guys behind me, that we're going to hone in on first. Some interesting plays that we saw from them yesterday. Swapping Scream over into mid for a section. You had highlighted in the last set.
Loved that.
To try and keep the Bastet ahead. Just letting Baronic go around on the Poseidon jungle. It was very fun to watch.
And I'm going to hone in on exactly that strategy of having Scream and Baronic essentially swapping back and forth between the two roles. Scream kind of playing that primary mid laner on the Bastet, because we got a good look at why they did that in the previous set. Kirmi goes towards the Bastet for himself, instead sits in the jungle the entirety of the game, and it took a lot longer to get started, whereas take a peek at Scream's level. We're 11 minutes in. He's level 13, and he's already capable of getting active, already has the fully stacked Transcendence. So I think that is not only an indication of the Scarabs confidence in Scream, the fact that they're willing to play this much through this guy, that they're willing to essentially have Baronic sacrifice not just his farm, but his role for Scream, speaks volumes. But you also have to bring up the adaptability of the Solar Scarabs as a whole. It is not often that we see the core of Smite adjusted at any level of play. And what do I mean by the core of Smite? I'm talking about how we classically approach the game. Someone's going to be playing mid. Somebody's going to be playing in the dual lane. The soul lane's going to have one guy there as well. Generally, there's a jungler. And the Solar Scarabs denied that entirely with that strategy, having these two players essentially just swapping roles throughout the entire duration of the game. So I think just a treat to watch these guys every single time. And now that I know that they've got these kinds of strategies in the back pocket and they can execute on it, it makes me even that much more excited to watch them play.
Well, watching how that one broke down, some giggles in the Scarabs booth as of right now. He's going to have an interesting matchup against someone who had, I think, a phenomenal resurgence into the jungle so far this year, and that is Twig on the other side. Now, I don't see him with the headset on, and I don't happen to see where his crown could be, because this is the guy, the Prime Gaming MVP of week number 1. And you got to put it on, Twig. It's like it's legal. Like Jithin's made that for you.
We painted it.
And also for other people to wear throughout the weeks. But for you, for the first time, that's like a big deal. But Mifflin, this last week it was phenomenal for Twig.
It really has been. I mean, not just this last week. I feel like Twig has just been really good in the jungle, man. It may be a slight growing pains as he tried to make that transition back to jungle originally, back when he was playing mid with the Jade Dragons. But now that he's been back in the jungle for a little while, shows why he was there to begin with, right? He's just adaptable, very capable of playing these new age style picks, will still be that initiator for his team at times. You can take the Twig out of mid, but you can't take the mid Twig out of Twig. And what do I mean by that? He's the guy who's like jumping in every single time, and that hasn't slowed down or stopped whatsoever. He's very willing to go towards things like the Erlong Shen, first in, last out. He's going to play things like the Nemesis and still find ways to initiate these fights. And then push comes to shove. He's got some picks in his back pocket that I personally love to watch. Like, when Twig is playing Hun bots and picks like that, it's, hey, I'm just going to place my ultimates better than the majority of Hun bots you'll ever get to see, or I'm just going to be involved in these team fights a little bit earlier than what you're used to seeing from the scaling style of picks that he goes towards. So Twig, a very adaptable player, but also, I believe, the in-game leader for the Camelot Kings. So not only jungling, not only having to keep track of every single lane, but also having to instruct your teammates. There's a lot to put on one guy, and he fills those shoes very well. And
the fact that he then is also playing, hey, look, there's the crown, and he's got it. I was wondering, and this is going to be the question, I think, for every single one of these guys. So it's adjustable. You can put it pretty much anywhere on that headset. He went with the straight up and down. If you were watching Waiting Room, you saw I went with the kind of caddy corner on the top right of my head. I'm just curious how players are going to wear this with, 8 weeks? How many weeks of Phase 2 are there? There's a lot of Phase 2.
It's double round robin.
So round robin.
6? There's 8 teams, but there's double headers. I think it's 6 weeks.
I want to say it's somewhere between 6 and 8. Somewhere in that wild range. Absolutely. I have like a whole schedule. I make the schedule for the casters. Like, I should know how long and how much of this we're going to be doing. But I do that a week at a time. I have the year-long schedule too. I don't have an excuse. Either way, we'll figure out how they all wear their MVP crowns as the weeks go on. Right now, it's all about the Kings, though. We actually got to sit down with them a little bit earlier this week to see how they were feeling about this set.
Differences in the Scarabs playstyle, I don't really think so. I think they've kind of just used, you've seen teams like Titans like stop pulling out the Ula and like Franticate and like trying to bug and all that stuff. And I think the Scarabs are kind of just on the old standard, warrior solo type of stuff, like mage mid. Occasional hunters, but I don't really, no big change since 9.5. It's made them less likely to snowball a game, just simply because of how the waves work and the time to kill changes on gods. I think that was one of their big strong points, was the fact that they could snowball a game and they could like shut out a team in 10 minutes. But yeah, I think if anything, the patch has been really bad for them. The Scarabs, I think usually people hype up Scream, but I think Stu's like that standout player by a mile. I think he's almost every single game single-handedly carrying the team. I think Scream can obviously do that. He's a really good player, but he just has these games where like it's not a good look for him. Like I said before, I think it's just Stu. I think he needs to get online. He needs to play around this lane, they need to have like a solid draft just overall. You know, being able to team fight well, do objectives well, peel for him. I think that's kind of the only win condition, and you know, it's kind of hard to like have a set play style to play against that. So you just got to be better and like just better on the day, like make smarter calls, have an even draft, and you know, just be a better team. I think that's probably the best way to go about it. If I was stranded on an island, any one of the Scarabs, I don't know. Honestly, they're all pretty useless. I don't know, like.
Got to be at least one person you could choose.
Okay, who would it be then? Who are you? Because I agree. I'm not taking any of the Scarabs.
You're not taking any of them.
Maybe Slaney?
Slaney, I think, would be very adept at getting us off the island.
I feel like he could filter water. I feel like he knows how to do that.
How to do that. Well, here's the real secret, Mifflin. You don't need to filter the water. You just get the water and you get a pan. You get a fire going. You boil the water.
Can you boil the salt off?
You're not trying to look for salt water, my guy.
You're stranded on an island, my guy.
On an
you
island,
can't be beggar.
An island doesn't necessarily mean there's no fresh water.
Oh, well, there isn't, so...
Oh, okay. So now this island has gotten much, much more
We're not sending them to an easy mode
island.
island.
In that case, you're choosing who are you going to plan to eat while you're on that island and hope that it prolongs your life long enough to get saved. Is there rain on this island? Ever?
Well, I mean, I'm sure.
Then yeah, you collect the rainwater.
Yeah, but like...
And then boil it so that it's clean and then drink it.
Yeah, I just don't think boiling.
Have you ever watched
that
Naked
good.
and Afraid?
What?
The show Naked and Afraid. Have you ever watched?
That doesn't sound like something that I would do.
It's on Discovery Channel. I recommend it for it's just interesting to see how people survive.
I would filter the water, I think, personally.
You would just have a water filter. So where's your water filter coming from?
Well, first, do I really want me to get into this? So first, you need to lay down some like frond leaves so you can build a base, and then you filter the water through rocks as well as dirt, and you funnel that through, and you kind of allow the sun to work with it too. I don't know the exact science behind it. But I know how to build it. All right, I know I'm gonna copy it. Like I don't know how math works, but I can do it.
The YouTube channel Primitive Technology?
Yeah.
This also seems like something you would.
God, we have not talked about these.
No, well,
hey,
look, there's only 5 bands on the screen right now. I'm interested in like, well, are you gonna make like a clay brick hut for yourself? Like, how are you?
No.
Are you gonna like luxuriate on this island, or do you think you're barely surviving?
Yeah, I think that I'm definitely getting a roof.
I'm probably dead
being
within
built.
2 weeks, I think.
Nah, not within 2 weeks. You couldn't die.
Don't you
within
starve
2 weeks.
fast? Like how? Isn't it like 7
Well,
days
not
or something?
me. I've got a lot of built-up
We will
reserve.
use this power wisely.
You're just not. No, yeah. You've got the reserve. And
I got that.
that's
So
where
I'm getting through 2 weeks.
I ruined my reserve, dude. Hold on.
Not my fault you decided to get the glamour going and not the survivability.
Yeah, you're right. I've ruined it. Either way, we can jump into it. Picks and bans. Game number 1. Scarabs are your first pick. Ymir, Khepri, Nemesis. Off the board by the Scarabs Kings. They ban out the Chernobog, the Poseidon, and the Mercury. Uller, first pick here for the Scarabs. The Kings respond with 2 Ys, Yemoja and Yu Huang, going into their favor. How do you feel about the Uller first pick?
Ull's a first pick, I think, fine, because it's a very contested pick. Brings you pressure through mid, or if you want him in the duo lane, you can toss him there as well. Just a lot of flex potential, and he's got some pretty decent build paths. So the Solar Scarabs being a team that generally likes to play through pressure, I'm not going to complain about a pick like Ull. But in taking Ull for themselves, they leave up a whole lot of value. Yu Huang is very quickly climbing my personal mage tier list. I think he's very high up there. Sure, his mid game might not be the absolute strongest, but the ultimate, the value of this god, his versatility.
Right now?
Who's playing what?
Who's playing mid game right now?
You're
either getting a kill in the first 3 minutes, or you're waiting until 25 anyway.
Yeah, it is so hard to play, but you know, mid-game strength's still all right to have.
Yeah.
It's not a bad thing. Yu Huang certainly doesn't have it. What he does have in the mid-game is probably more survivability than the majority of the rest of the mage cast. Similarly, Yemoja, very survivable, brings you sustain in the team fight. And now Osiris locked in as well. We've seen what damage mitigation can look like if you're going down that style of play. He might not have like the 25% that Raven gets from Mystic Rush, but he's got everything from his passive as well as the tether. And the opportunity to go down
that
with his
wasn't
hammer.
slowing Raven down when that Mystic Rush wasn't available anyway.
Yeah. And Osiris can do just about all of that more consistently, more often,
man.
and expect the Kings to do so.
That was fun. Well, fun. It was interesting to watch. That was wild to see how little damage he was taking. 96,000. I almost wish the game had gone on a little longer for him to break the 100K.
Yeah, he takes one more auto attack. And it's like 1,000 per auto. Might as well be.
Yeah, they could have waited just a little bit. I mean, it might have been obnoxious to do so, but for the numbers, it would have been very cool. Top mitigated. I know that displays on the T screen. He knew what he was going for.
I'm thinking he had that the whole game and it didn't change.
I sincerely doubt it. It usually goes to the solo laner just by merit of the lane.
They fight the most.
Let alone how things are going to shake out. Xingqian banned out by the Kings, something that has been very often paired when you are picking up some auto attackers. Oleron is also banned out here by the Kings, so trying to stifle something that has been good for both Baronic, but also primarily Stewart here, since they could probably throw a Jingwei solo lane is kind of what I'm starting to think here. How do you
It's
feel
got to
about
be
that?
Ul solo, right? Between those two, even if Oleron's getting locked in, maybe you're putting that to Stewart, but then you take Jingwei mid. I just think that Ul's probably better in one of the side lanes where he's allowed to leverage that aggression early on, but I am surprised in general that the Kings are dedicating that ban over towards Oleron, just because the Solar Scarabs do not strike me as a team that's going to run triple carry compositions. That's a very slow style of play. You're essentially seeding the early game, and that is not the Solar Scarabs' MO whatsoever.
What you aim at?
With Ul, with Gilgamesh, you're kind of allowed to go towards another hunter. Jingwei is safe on her own, so you can leverage the aggression of those two picks. Expect to see maybe one of Bobby's specials. I wouldn't be overly surprised if it's like a Sylvanas lock-in for the Solar Scarabs. You can get some of that sustain, as well as the ability to displace individual members of the Camelot Kings, but it seems like they're going to think about it a little bit longer. I think just looking at it, aggression should be the name of the game here. And then you've got the Jingwei to facilitate you in the late game.
He's in design.
Yeah. God, I miss that guy.
Oh yeah, you're right. Aggro's in design. Aggression
in jail.
In jail, probably in like Guatemala or something. Who knows that guy? I was gonna ask about a Fafnir, and then I made a bad joke anyway. But yeah, how do you feel about it? I mean, with the CC on the team, you know, Uller single axe, Jingwei like the knock up, Gilgamesh dropkick. Like, does just adding another single target CC maybe feel a little worse than maybe trying to branch out wider?
I will always be a massive proponent of at least having one multi-target CC god on your team, just because it's so much easier to burn away those beads or those CC immune ultimates with that style of pick. But with what you've already got, you already do a good job highlighting it, Ul and Gilgamesh. I think you can be allowed to go towards another single target CC. The only issue with single target CC, I feel like I'm saying it so much, is the fact that generally when you're drafting that style of composition, you've got like one or two guys that can do it.
Yeah.
If you've got three of them, someone's burning beads regardless. It doesn't matter if it's all single targets. So the Solar Scarabs, I don't think going to be too concerned about their ability to do to burn away the CC immunity of the Kings.
Later?
You know, somehow my mind completely blanked on how phenomenal Scary D's Uller was yesterday. Like, I was sitting here just like, man, I wonder why they first picked it. And then now I'm like, now it's all flooding back to me. How good, how many stuns that was hitting, things like that. Kumbhakarna, something that if you were watching the support media day this past Wednesday, or if you're going to, you know, somewhere like youtube.com/SmitePro in order to catch up on any of those videos. Yeah, it's youtube.com/SmitePro.
Of course.
Smite VOD, that's where you would find past broadcasts. Smite Pro, that's where you need to go if you want things like the media day. They were talking about how Kumba feels good if you're going to have just a kind of solo tank in essence, because it's good at dealing with assassins, decently good at dealing with some of the carries as well. They get the Morgan, and you had made a little face when that one got locked in.
Yeah, I'm just not a massive fan of how the Morgan fits into this composition. You don't have the absolute best transformation targets. For the most part, expect them to be turning into either the Osiris, the Erlong, or the Gilgamesh, depending on which one of those has got the earliest lead. But the Morgan is a style of pick that I really do think is just saying, hey, man, all these mid camps that spawn up, we're not touching them. We can't get to those because she struggles so much at establishing pressure. She's not the best at boxing in the lane. Up against a Yu Huang, who's already incredibly survivable. Good luck closing gap to use the dark aspects. That's the Morgan stun. So concerned about her ability to get to that mid, get to that late game where she could become that solo agent and look for that one-shot style of play. Because when I think of the Solar Scares, it really is all about that early game aggression, especially recently.
Yeah.
And this is not a draft that screams that to me. They're capable of doing it. Gilgamesh can do it on his own at times, but it's not that same level of hyper carry potential out of the jungle.
What was it yesterday? The Gilgamesh came through and got a blink first blood by kicking the solo laner into the tower, so
That's pretty good.
who knows? Maybe that will be where the pressure is for them. The Gilgamesh, I think, maybe the more essential portion. You know, you're looking at the Morrigan. Admittedly, the Jingwei, I think that is very late game skewed, but I see that guy, yeah, right there. He
Good job.
screams to
You got
me
there instantly.
as the guy who is going to be like the bridge for them to get to that portion.
Yeah, Gilgamesh, that guy right there, will be the pick to get you to the late game. I just really wanted to try, but you got to talk about how difficult it is going to be to get to that late game, especially against this composition from the Camelot Kings. You've got the Chiron, who is just generating pressure continually. You've got the Erlong Shen, who can act as your initiator, or more often than not, when Captain Twig is on the team, he's going to be your jungler, who's dealing a whole lot of damage early on. You don't really have to worry so much about Osiris in the laning phase. He'll likely go towards Death's Toll in that first slot, so a lot of mitigation as well as survivability. In the late game team fight, if that's what you're aiming for with this double hunter composition, you have to contend with a Yamoja. That's never fun to play against in the late game. I am concerned. I mean, just looking at these drafts holistically, I might just straight up favor the Camelot Kings.
Well, they seem to be happy to hear that one, right? I can imagine hoops and hollers wherever.
Oh, they don't care what I think.
Oh,
they're
no,
so much better than me, bro.
They're playing their own game anyway. Well, that's actually where things can get really interesting here. You look at this Kings draft, and you know, you had mentioned it, like Yu Huang, good for a couple of levels, then chills out for a while, then comes back, late game power. Yamoja, late game power. Osiris, late game power. Admittedly, the Chiron might be the weakest, quote unquote, for their late game potential. And he still hits really hard in the late game.
From real far
so
away.
it feels like that not only fits well for balancing out what the Scarabs have grabbed, but also the King style. The Kings don't want to do anything for 20 minutes anyway. They want to farm, they want to hang out, and then they want to come in and just be better at team fighting than you. And they'll do that whether you try to bring the fight to them or not. And they will be better than you at that team fight. That's how they played a majority of the first phase.
But that's not to say that they're not capable of playing that early game.
Oh, no, they will.
I agree that it is, at times, it feels begrudging, right? Like, they get an early game lead because the enemy team walks into their jungle and they're like, I guess I'll kill them. And they do so very well. And if they're able to establish that lead, this is a draft from the Kings that could just slam objectives.
But we'll see whether or not they slam those objectives earlier if they wait a little bit later as we jump down to J-Mac and Trelly for game number 1.
Yeah, thank you so much. And Mifflin, while the pros may not care what you think, we at least care what you think, or at least I care what you think in the opinions here. As we jump right into game number 1 between the Solar Scarabs and the Camelot Kings. Scary D back on the Uller after his great performance that he had in his previous set on this guy in his previous performance with it. Not surprised to see him back there. Aggression already in the duo lane. A kickback up onto Stewart's going to put some pressure for the Camelot Kings duo. Okay, some pressure, a lot of pressure early on. It's J-Mac and Trelly here in game number 1. I mean, maybe get your opinions, you know, on the composition that the Scarabs have going here with this Kumbhakarn kind of being that solo tank for their team.
Yeah, I think Kumbha one of the best solo tanks in the game right now. I always highlight it whenever you see some of these supports on a Larry, hold that thought though. Stewart's taking a lot of damage here. The body blocks from inbound should be good. And no masterful shot available, so not any more poke coming the way of Netroid. But whenever there is a hunter in the duo lane, my mind always goes to who is going to be the initiator, the peel. Usually we see a Baron or something like that, and that's either you're going to get online very early and you're going to help out your team, or you're going to be such an easy kill as the game goes on. Kumbha, not that option. I think Kumbha has a ton of peel. You can stand at the forefront of the fight pretty easily. Anyone that doesn't have beads, which Captain Twig wants to blink initiate to the backline, you can just easily mez him and say, nope. We're going to back up, you know, reset around that. So I like Kumbhakarn a lot as that solo tank. As long as you have a fair bit of follow-up with Veronica on the Morgan, I think you'll always have a good option whenever they land from that epic uppercut, whether it be 2 Gilgameshes, 2 Winds of Shamashes, you know, there's just so many different options here.
Well, not only will he have follow-up from Veronica, maybe even Scream come out of a epic uppercut into a drop kick is a lot of displacement and a lot of time out of combat more than anything if anybody does hit that. So we'll see where Inbound and Scream put a lot of their CC in focus. For now, the Kings are putting their focus on this blue buff, a 2v2 potential invade, or it could just be a 1v1 boxing match between the junglers for now. Captain Twig will start up the blue buff variety, keeping Scary D at bay. Scream, with the drop kick, will manage to secure that blue buff for his ally, so Scary D not going to have to worry about mana problems for a little while.
Yeah, I saw the hail of arrows go over the wall too, just making sure that he could provide a little bit of pressure onto that buff with also not putting himself out of danger, right? The Uller not the best right now. If you're going to be spamming abilities, without a fully stacked Transcendence or even a Transcendence build, you're going to be running out of mana pretty quickly, especially if you don't have that Totem of Coup control. So the blue buff, something that Ullr wants, Scaredy, not going to be hiding under tower for long anymore because he's got that mana sustain. So probably pretty good, right? You want Scream heading over there as much as possible. You don't want this Ullr getting behind in lane. Scaredy, you know, from behind the Ullr is not able to win lane at all. From even, so annoying to deal with. You have to close gap. Variety wants to be able to clear the wave and try and walk up an auto attack, but you catch an axe to the face and your health bar starts looking like this.
Yeah, Variety's not been having the best time in this lane, even despite the fact that there was a bit of a blue buff scuffle earlier on.
A scuffle, kerfluffle.
A scuffle, kerfluffle, a scuttle, I don't know. No, the scuttle is what I describe as Arachne's ultimate when she scuttles across the web. That's not the right word that I'm looking for. A powwow?
Whatever it was, it worked, and Variety could be in some trouble here, but
nah, he's good.
He's got that ult. He'll be just fine.
Yeah, level 5 Variety should be fine. Not really wanting to dive under a tier 1 tower even this early in the game. Those towers do still hit relatively hard up against some of these squishier targets like Scaredy and Scream with no defense to their name. And Scaredy, no stranger to this pick. He played it twice in his last set, one time against the King Arthur, one time against the Bologna. Not the most favorable of matchups in either of those situations, but it seems that even the stance switch hunters are not safe from making their way over into the duo lane, or solo lane.
Yeah, also true.
Also the duo lane.
Yeah, the duo lane especially, but also the solo lane. Yeah, when I saw it, because Scary D for the longest time was just that traditional warrior player. He had that great Amaterasu, you know, things like that. And so when I saw this hunter meta, I didn't know how he was going to fare. We saw the first time he played that Kleena. Remember, it wasn't the best. You could tell that he didn't master it, and then he comes back like a week later and just like hard carried on it. And I was like, wait, Scary D learns fast, and it looks like that's what we're seeing here. He's been continuously being able to play this Ullr at such a high level, not afraid to go in for these ganks, and with Scream here, Variety could be some trouble.
Variety should go down here. The Winter Shamashi need one more hit. A jump in from Scream is not enough damage, but the follow-up auto is enough. Captain Twig, though, rotates over, finds the double taunt. The turtle form in, and one more auto will get the kill. A 1-for-1 trade as the junglers both manage to find a pick. Captain Twig could find more. Scary D, low in mana and one pin, could close out the gap, but Captain Twig not going to push forward.
Yeah, Scary D's got that MP5 from the blue buff, and if he steps back into his tower, should have enough to get another leap and axe if necessary. Good answer back by Captain Twig, though. Usually when you see, you know, it was the gank-re-gank situation where Scream heads right, forces Variety's ult, then comes back around and says, hey, your ult's not back up yet, I'm going to try and re-gank you in that time. I really would have expected Captain Twig to say, hey, I'll either be here to help you, or I'm going to be looking to try and get a kill in left. Seeing as that's a Jing Wei, Stewart very safe in this lane, even an Erlong with Blink is not going to be able to find a kill as long as beads and that airstrike are available. Says, I'll just engage after the fact. They're going to have to dive your tower. So Variety, great job to survive as long as possible and do just enough damage and make Scream dive that tower so that Captain Twig's able to get the re-kill there.
At least as the mid lane is concerned, Bronic with a slight XP lead up over his opposition big man Tings. And now being able to go back and pick up that Dumar. I was wondering which of the route that Bronic's going to go down. We saw even a lot of Charon's coin popping its way up for mid laners. We've been seeing Dumor splash its way into and out of the meta. With this Morgan getting as much movement speed early on seems to be the name of the game for Bronic.
Yeah, my favorite Morgan start is, or the Morgan start is definitely the Doom Orb and a Spear of Deso, Poly as soon as you can, and then what, you know, if you need a Divine or a Magi's, anything like that, because when you put points into that third ability and you get Doom Orb procs, you are just zooming around the map as quickly as possible. You're invis for so long and just helps you out a ton. Genetics, though, is going to be stealing away some of these offerings. The premier offering invader, I think, in the league, since this has been an objective, but Inbound's going to make a rotation over and find an ult.
Captain Twig finds the double taunt, finds the turtle form, and gets enough distance away from the root, but the winds will kick him right back in. It's a 3 versus 2, but Variety has 3 tethered out, and now that big man Tings has joined the fray. This fight could turn right back around. A second Winds of Shamash comes out, and it's big man Tings for the first hit. Captain Twig punted against the wall yet again. And it's a 1-for-2 now as Variety finds the Duncan with the ultimate. Baronic on the run, but Baronic cannot get out of the River's Rebuke. It's a double kill for Variety.
And Inbound was able to sneak out through the top. No, he's not going to make it. I was going to say maybe Genetics can find the Riptide if they hurry up. Inbound was able to sneak out through that tower. And what started off was a decent ult onto Captain Twig. The whole team comes in to make that rotation. And now it looks like the Camelot Kings are going to have a little bit of a gold lead and a kill lead. Beautiful rotation in for big man Tings, by the way. I mean, it's one thing for the Morgan to make that rotation. She's very mobile and has some movement speed, but the Yu Huang making it there right as the action started, definitely a heads-up play. And level 9 for the mid laner. Both mid laners are level 9, to be fair. I think the kill going that way, Baronic helped out a little bit, so not going to be too much overwhelming pressure. Big man Tings didn't die, and he kept the farm game going, though.
Battle between the supports for a mid camp, and this one goes to Genetics for just having a little bit more abilities active for himself. One offering away, at least, from stacking up the Trebuchet for the Camelot Kings, and kind of going back to Genetics' play earlier on. He traveled all the way from enemy Obelisk to that blue buff to get to that fight, so quite the trek that the support had to make to get up there. And he is one of the only supports still in the league going for these offering steals. That's something that's been kind of the forte of the Camelot Kings for almost all of this season.
Yeah, they've been playing, they farm the map so well. And also, they want to make sure they get every little advantage they can. The offerings are going to stack up to that Trebuchet. You want to make sure you get that gold experience and that objective for your team more often than not. Most of these teams are like, if it goes our way, good. We're not going to go out of our way to throw our way of our HP and steal that one away. But if you can play around these Trebuchets and you can rotate and say, hey, we're going to send it down, and they do. They actually send it down immediately. So heading down left lane right now, pushing out Stewart, getting Netroid some of that pressure as well as some stacks on Transcendence, things like that. It's going to help out, and I did expect to see, what we are seeing is Genetics is coming over here to duo lane, going to push with this objective, trying to get active.
Stewart had used his dash and used his ultimate, half HP already. Netroid needs all 3 shots if he wanted any hope of killing, but he doesn't find the first one, so he'll use the second two to clear out the wave instead. Genetics will be mezzed out by inbound just to tell him to get away from Stewart at this point, and with a rotation from Scream, should be the end there. But speaking of Scream, and we might have to wait a moment for this team fight. It's a 4 versus 3 for the Camelot Kings on a purple buff invade. Baronic even rotating now. It's a 4v4, and the ultimate comes out from Genetics. It's going to be inbound. The first one dropped in the fight, and the first one who goes down with one more in hand, it goes to Big Man Tings. Captain Twig dealing with Stewart, but it's going to be the beads out of the Jing Wei, and the ultimate out of Captain Twig. Scream now rooted in place. Scream one hit away, and Netroid will take him down.
Man, did not love that play from the Scarabs. The 4v3 on the buff, Stewart had to ult out already. It's just a purple buff there, and the Kings play it perfectly, right? They send that Trebuchet down as Baronic is getting in trouble here, taking a lot of damage, and he's going to fall down as well. Wow. Captain Twig is on an absolute tear at the moment, and that tower will also drop. And this is what I was talking about. Genetics gets that offering, sends the Trebuchet down, rotates over, and says, we're going to invade your purple buff while the Trebuchet is just ticking away at your tower. Can you try and stop it? They did their best, but the fight is just not there. Much better early game is the Camelot Kings, and poking out inbound and then getting all those other kills, as well as that tower, is going to net huge gold gains for the Camelot Kings.
That might just be the most aggressive Trebuchet play that we have seen so far in the SPL. As you mentioned, Genetics walks up, pushes it down, and then now we have a 4 versus 4 bout at a purple buff. All that while, Tier 1 tower goes down, and right at the 10-minute mark, the Hunter for the Scarabs now has lost one of his bastions of safety. That Tier 1 tower is gone. Not much poke on the Tier 2, but at least a little bit of damage early on. The Camelot Kings are really starting with a hefty pace out. And going back to Scream, because I was wondering if the Tier 1 breastplate that he had earlier on was from his item pickup or from his quest, but it was not. He had picked it up himself and elected to fully upgrade it to a Contagion very early on.
Yeah, the Katana was the quest item. I saw the Tier 1 breastplate and had the same thought you did, but then I watched him go for that Katana. He picked it up, he went stone cutting online, and now it looks like inbound could be in some trouble here. Genetics has the whoop, but can just immune that with the Groggy Strike, and unless he wants to use an ultimate on Akumba, and he does not, Genetics will let inbound go for now, so a little bit out of danger. But you were talking about this earlier. Scream is maybe looking for an opportunity to kill Variety. Stewart can't push up because there's no more tower, so that means the purple buffs are now forfeit. Every purple buff that spawns in, Captain Twig and Netroid will be on, and this Jing Wei will be spending a lot of time at that Tier 1 tower, and Tier 1 in mid has also fallen down. This is a very quick, fast-paced game, and 2 quick towers going down.
Yeah, that's 2 points of safety now lost to the Scarabs on multiple fronts now. Tier 1 in left, Tier 1 in mid, and a Gold Fury start. The Camelot Kings are playing a very aggressive early game, which is a little bit uncharacteristic of them. Normally, they're the team that waits to farm for 15 to 20, and then they're ready for these team fights, even despite usually being down maybe 2,000 or 3,000 early. Variety kicked against the wall, and, well, Variety doesn't care. He is
winning this trade.
He is, and I can't even say that he's winning. He's not even losing. He's just existing while this trade happens. Now he's winning it up against Scary D, waiting for that jump to come through, but does not find it.
He's laughing. You see, I just watched his camera. He has no fear right now, and now they're about to turn this.
Scream and Twig now joined by Inbound and Baronic. A 3v2, but a taunt from Captain Twig will stop the Groggy Strike. 4 versus 2. Now with Genetics walking in, has that ultimate. Inbound is low, and Inbound is just a few swings away from going down. That River's Rebuke is up by Genetics, and where will he throw it out? The Dueling Dragons will take down Inbound. A big push by Big Man Tings.
That was a massive ultimate there to push down the Kumba. And the third tower of the game may be getting looked at here for the Camelot Kings. 13 minutes in. They don't have enough minions, but I guess they don't care. Variety's going to tank up a few shots as the next wave comes in. But the Pyromancer, that's going to be worth a little bit more right now. They want to go for that first, and then maybe they'll go for the tower later on in the game. Just so early to dive a tower, but this is the third one going down, so can I even say that?
Are the Kings just speed-running Smite right now? Are they just speed-running a Smite Pro game at this point? Tier 1 tower and right doesn't go down just yet, but it's already been 1 Gold Fury, 1 Pyromancer, 2 Tier 1 towers, and a 6,000 plus gold lead that the Camelot Kings have 13.5 minutes into the game. One of the speediest paces that we've seen, not just from this team, but in the league in general.
What would we call this? The just speedrunning SPL set, any percent world record coming to you shortly.
Well, right, it can't be 100% because they would have to take all 6 of the towers before they even touch the Phoenix.
Well, right, it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
And maybe they're still going for it. We'll have to see how that goes. But look at this, Genetics still not letting this purple buff go. We'll show some support to Netroid as they just invade that one again. I feel so bad for Stuart because on a Jingwei, you pick this late game hard carry. You want to get online. You want to go pretty much uncontested. He stole it away. I didn't even notice. Good on Stuart to be able to clarify that. But you just have to stay underneath this tower. There's so much pressure. You're 3 levels behind Chiron. Netroid has not backed since level 12 because he doesn't have a second relic. He's just been sitting here and saying, there's no pressure on this lane. Scream has tried to gank Osiris twice. It worked once very long ago, but it hasn't worked as of recent. And Variety's been winning that 1v2 because of the build path. Look at this. Sovereignty, Glad Shield, Witchblade. These auto attackers don't stand a chance.
Well, Netroid finally got to go back to base. We'll talk about him after Scary D inevitably goes down to Twig and Variety, who are tanking up this tower with no regard for human life at this point. It's another kill up for Captain Twig and the Camelot Kings. Genetics will find inbound and CC him to death. And Ultimate comes out from inbound, but the Dragons just a little off the mark by Big Man Tings, a little slow on the gun for that one. The Kings find yet another pick, yet another Tier 1 tower, and even more gold in their pocket.
And they might go for the Tier 2 tower here. They really are trying to speedrun this. Genetics has meditation if they want to just poke out and keep getting the healing up here. Yeah, he's got the healing and the med. He's got anything they need. Tier 2's going down.
Less than that, it's the fact that he's already level 12 at this point, while on the other side, it's only level 9 out of inbound, and a fully upgraded one, the cooldown reset meditation picked up for the Camelot Kings support. Netroid, I was trying to talk about him at the moment. As we see this 8,000 gold, 11k plus XP lead. Netroid on that last back after hitting 12 and staying till level 15, bought a full Titan's Bane and his shell on back. So a massive power spike early on for this Chiron.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the avenues back in because that, that's my job. I'm trying to give you ways that the Solar Scarabs can get back in.
Lay it on me.
Netroid is pushing very far up in lane. Not right now, but has been, pretty religiously. So if Scream could capitalize on that, I think it would net some. Stuart's 0-0. He's the only one who hasn't fallen. I'm not going to say behind. He just hasn't fallen.
That's a silver lining for my fantasy team is if he doesn't die.
Right. So if Netroid continuously goes for this purple buff, which unfortunately did, and he's once again trying to kill Variety, I'm going to let you in on a secret, J-Mac. It's not going to go well. I
don't even know if that's necessarily a secret at this point. Scary D's still trying to box back. Variety shows us a modicum of mercy on the right-hand side up against it. There's not going to be any mercy against inbound, except for that Riptide just a little bit shy off the mark. Variety
he's going to 1v2 though.
Back in the 2v1, Variety, sure, pushed inside the winds. He's probably not happy about that. Gets bumped against the wall. This is the most damage that they're getting back to him. Does get rooted in place. Variety, no ultimate, a little too much and a little too big for his britches. He will go down to the 2v1 that delayed for so long.
All right, all I want to say is if Variety played it safe after he ulted and just went back to tower, he would have been fine. But he wanted to just say, you guys can't kill me and continuously fight this. As Captain Twig has the chase, very far away are the rest of the Kings. They've got a little bit of alone time here.
Finds the taunt, uses the beads, needs one more hit on the Scary D, but will not grab it. Captain Twig now in a 2v1 with a second wins popped out by Barani, but with Big Man Tings over, it is as good as done. Another kill for the mid laner of the Camelot Kings. Another ultimate by inbound just to try and find a way out. But the pin from Captain Twig will lock inbound down. It'll be Big Man Tings and Captain Twig to drop him.
And I don't think they're going to be postured for this Fire Giant just yet. Netroid is here, though, and it looks like Genetics wants to pull it. Already popped the meditation, has a fortified shell if need be, and Scream is very low, but still wants to try and contest this. Just has the blink available, no Winds of Samash.
This would be massive if Scream can find this objective steal. Genetics is here, has a little bit of Omi drop kick, throws him against the Fire Giant pit. That's big, but Big Man Ting still gets the kill, and the Camelot Kings get the Fire Giant. The Dragons just miss out on clipping Scary D. Captain Twig finds the pin up on the Hunter, and Scary D is as good as dead. 13 on the board for the Kings and a Fire Giant for all 5.
5-0 is the Yu Huang. 5-1 is the Erlong Shen.
Now that's scary.
And the duo lane collectively is 1-0 together with 11 assists. So this is a rough one for the Scarabs. Stewart still being that shimmering ray of hope, but when your shimmering ray of hope has 2.5 items and it's also 2 levels down, and I believe if we look at the player damage, I would assume fairly low on the charts because he has not rotated and he is at the bottom below the Kumbhakarna. So there's a lot of weight on the Jingwei's shoulders to say, don't worry guys, I know I'm not rotating in, but I'll help eventually. I don't think it's going to be too much of a possibility. I got to applaud the Scarabs for trying these fights, even when they're this far behind. Scream has been trying to get active as much as possible, but killing Variety just took so long, and then they stayed a little bit too long as well.
Captain Twig and Genetics will group up to take down the Fury. So the Primal Fury will go the way of the Camelot Kings. And now pushing up mid lane as a second Trebuchet is here for the Camelot Kings to start marching down the mid. Big man Tings will charge up a little bit of his Dow to be ready for the next fight, but that is now 5 of the 6 towers erased off the map. Captain Twig on the left side to try and solo out that one with some minions once they inevitably arrive. Or maybe we just start a fight in the mid lane, Phoenix. Instead, Netroid uses his ultimate to get some damage into the back line. The Trebuchet has shown up to the Phoenix line, but the Solar Scarabs have not fully shown up. Scream and Stewart are both heavily poked out, especially Stewart, who gets melted by Captain Twig before he can even get into the airstrike. Scream at half, rooted out, and dropped down. The drop kick only delays his life before Variety brings him to an early grave, and the Camelot Kings have taken the Phoenix. They've got 3 players down, and they might just get a sub-20-minute game over the Solar Scarabs because Inbound and Baronic cannot find a path in. The Kings have now taken the crown of the fastest game so far this phase at 19 minutes and 49 seconds.
I don't know what the speedrun category would be, J-Mac. They didn't get all the Phoenixes, they didn't get all the towers, but they did end the game, and that's all it took. We saw very little attempts at a fight back from the Solar Scarabs. Scream was doing his best to get active. Variety just built way too tanky. They overcommitted a bit, forced a little bit too much, and the Camelot Kings, man, just farmed so well. We saw those tier 1 towers drop way too early.
If I am any team in the league watching that, I'm terrified because this is not the Camelot Kings that we are used to seeing. This is a completely different beast out here in game number 1 up against the Solar Scarabs. I mean, from minute 1, they're diving aggressively up against the opposition. They're invading camps on cooldown right away. We see a 2v2 with the blue buff, and then a Trebuchet as soon as possible leads to an early 4 versus 4 at a purple buff. These Kings are crazy.
I agree. I think Genetics planned that out accordingly, right? He wanted to invade those offerings, get that Trebuchet, send it down, invade the purple buff off that. Didn't expect it to go so well where you get the tier 1 tower, but you'll take any gold you can get at that point.
A couple of kills, couple of towers, and then a couple more team fights is all the Camelot Kings needed. They take game number 1. Can the Scarabs bounce back? Will the Kings sweep it out? We'll find out in game 2 right after this.
on game number 1. 19 minutes is all they need to do so. Just shy, Mifflin. The one I have for phase 1 was 19:19, so just a little faster. And the Kings are maybe looking at a year-long record, and that's remarkable given the changes we've seen. Of course, they are able to do so, play so well, and be so strong because they see the game so beautifully on those Alienware gaming monitors they're using at the 240 hertz, of course, playing on the Aurora Ryzen R10 desktops out there that are all amazing. And you, too, can pick up some of your own Alienware gear. Right here is a fantastic link for you to go to, smitegame.com/Alienware. This year, the code is AWSMITE09. That's AWSMITE09. And you can get discounts on select products out there and start gaming like the pros yourself. I will admit I am very partial to these laptops. I love them. And every time I'm reminded of the specs, like these things have like better graphics cards in them than my desktop right now. I'm still rocking a 1080. These things have like 3070s in them, things like that. It is nuts how well they're working. So thanks to Alienware, and thanks to Mifflin for standing by, I guess, sitting by at the desk with me.
Do you have to check?
Yeah, I don't know why I did. It's like we never.
Did you just
I don't
check
think
me
anyone
out
has
live?
ever.
That's crazy.
I'm glad that's what you're getting out of that one.
What else? You pulled up.
Yeah, I was making sure you're sitting in a chair.
Because I'm this tall normally.
Normally.
I am currently 4
I'm
feet
kind of
off
curious.
the ground.
What does it look like when you're standing at the desk? I don't think I've ever seen you stand there. Now we've got to see. Oh, hey, you can't do that. You're out of the camera shot.
Oh, really? Thanks.
I think you might be too tall. Well, now I know for frame of reference that I guess we're same eye level. I should have known. Either way, the Kings, they just do it. And like, there's no other way, I think, at least for me, to describe it. They just came out with a bang and absolutely found themselves a victory here.
Yeah, I don't want to take away from the individual plays of the Camelot Kings or the strategies that they were devising, but I really do feel like this game can be boiled down in large part to draft diff. I really like the Solar Scarabs draft with like the first 3 picks. I was like, okay, I see what we're doing. Ool, you've got your Gilgamesh, sure, Jingwei. All right, that's a pretty solid foundation. And you get to like the last 2 picks, and then I just feel like the Solar Scarabs like lost the through thread. Like the strategy that they were initially trying to employ no longer existed because you can't really play through the Morgan for pressure. Gilgamesh didn't really have any great lanes to go towards, and the Camelot Kings felt like every fight that they decided to take was just a good one, especially around Big Man Tings. Every time he got involved, Dao got cultivated. That is just the simplest way to put it. These are always the hardest games to break down. When they're as one-sided as that, it's hard to say anything besides GG, go next.
They won, and then they kept winning. And in case you missed out on it, they decided to win some more. 0-0-12 for Genetics, 5-0-9, 7-1, and 8. A lot of beautiful-looking slash lines there for the 3-piece core in the middle of the Kings. And some decent damage. A game that quick, don't have a lot of time to rack up the numbers. So 15K is where we cap off here. And Mifflin, I guess, is it just, the Morgan? Is it just that pick that you maybe shift, or do you change the Kumba? Where do you start to change up some of the pressure if it's feeling all draft-oriented?
Look, I don't think any individual pick is an issue, right? I'm not coming out here and saying, hey, the Morgan's not good, or Kumakana's not good.
But
I
that
think
draft.
With that draft or with a composition, I would just like to see the Solar Scarabs take a composition that is more clearly defined. Are we waiting for the late game and looking for the team fight? Are we trying to bring the pressure early? Are we playing through the side lanes? Is this an objective composition? Something like that. Because when I look at what the Scarabs brought in Game 1, I'm confused. I'm just confused as to what the game plan really was. Whereas you look at that Kings draft, and you don't really need to see the draft. You could see the play on field, and you know exactly what their strategy was.
Yeah, it was kill them dead real quick, win game. And they did all of those things,
all
as it
above.
turns out, pretty well. So last time around, Ymir, Khepri, Nemesis were the bans for the Scarabs. The Kings went Chernabog, Poseidon, Mercury at the top of the game. Bellona, Osiris is already the matchup here. And it's Chernabog, Ul on the side of the Kings. So changing up some of the bans, letting some of those gods through. Khepri, Nemesis, Mercury, and very notably something that was helpful for both the Scarabs and the Valkyries yesterday, the Poseidon, all still available.
plenty of priority picks. The Kali, as of now, I think has been a standout for Scream and a pick that he could certainly go towards. Has decent early game presence, but really does scale up well into that late game. Plenty of options from here. I am surprised that the Camelot Kings have dedicated so many of their bans towards these hunters. Chernobog, sure, but the Ull was not such a massive issue. Yu Huang, I suppose, does fit the style of ban that the Kings would be looking for if they're looking to reprise that same style of play that they had for themselves. You don't want to play against a god that could just remove themselves from the play field every 15 or so seconds, so Yu Huang makes perfect sense. But in deciding to ban that out, they allow Mercury through, which I believe has been banned against the Solar Scarabs 90% of the time. And for good reason. You put one of their star players and one of their star picks, and generally he'll be able to make something happen for his team, but still certainly a pick that takes a little bit of time. You want to finish that Golden Blade and then get into that first item afterward, be it a Wind Demon or a Rage, or even a Deathbringer at times, depending on the lead that you're able to establish. That's generally when Mercury starts to get the ball rolling. And the Camelot Kings, if they are going to go back to that same pace that we saw in Game 1, you weren't waiting till second item to fight. You were fighting immediately.
Up to this point, like you said, banned against them a majority of the time, or banned by them in some of those other instances. Actually, never once banned by them.
Yeah, they're trying to get it.
They got it once. They won with it at the time, so really solid for them. This is not what I was expecting. That one is King Arthur, really high up in the priority here for the Kings. Poseidon maybe made a little bit more sense to me with the Yu Huang ban. Poseidon being banned last time, it felt like they wanted to make sure both of those picks stayed away from Baronic's hands. So the Kings are able to pick that. But what do you read into the King Arthur so far up this draft?
Lane bully, you've already got Bellona and Osiris taken off the table. I could have guessed that King Arthur would likely be what variety is going towards. Otherwise, the discussion branches out to Ratatasker and things along those lines. Yeah. But otherwise, King Arthur has got some very good build path options. Bluestone, Sovereignty, Glad Shield, for the most part, going to work out. I think it's pretty unlikely that we see a magical soul laner for the Solar Scarabs, so regardless, King Arthur should be able to double dip on that physical defense. Would be pretty surprised if it isn't that Sovereignty in the first slot, and then just having more abilities than everybody else means that you utilize Bluestone to its fullest extent. And it's a god that is very capable of bullying the lane, has decent rotations as well, and it fits the Camelot Kings style. And it fits their motif. Yeah. That's King Arthur.
That's exactly what you want, the Excalibur. Part of their logo itself, Mifflin.
Is that Excalibur?
I'm assuming so.
That's just a sword, man.
Is it just a sword with a crown on it?
Excalibur was not shiny. That was at the bottom of a lake for millions of years.
You could polish it afterward.
I don't know about that. Polish was...
it's a magical sword, bro.
Polish
it could be shiny
was
if it wants
invented in 1920, man.
Yeah?
Probably.
Yeah, the roaring 20s, it brought a lot of things for the U.S. Polish.
That's at the top of the list. And peanut butter.
Was it peanut butter? Oh, yeah, that is it is more recent. I don't think 20s.
I don't know.
It is a more
Stop
recent
fact-checking and just start respecting.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? I believe you full and wholeheartedly. Amaterasu, Amuz, and Cobb locked in here for the Scarabs. AMC, someone who has been very, very potent, whether it goes mid, whether it goes the carry. Either way, feeling pretty good about that. Amaterasu, a great pick for Scary D from what we've seen in the past.
Yeah, I'm liking what we see from the Solar Scarabs draft as of now. You've got the Amuz and Cobb for that defense shred, which Mercury is going to be able to make great use of. Amaterasu's passive means that if Mercury and Ama and AMC are on any of these objectives, they're going to burn very quickly. It's a relatively strong early game composition. Mercury should be able to burn off those beads, or if Amaterasu is able to do it herself with a Dazzling Offensive, Mercury can rotate through and make use of that. If any of that ultimate is connecting from Mercury, the CC immediately afterwards should set up very well for the Stinger. So this is a composition that is very capable of finding picks from the Solar Scarabs and then transitioning those picks in towards objectives, whereas the Camelot Kings draft looks a little bit more so lean towards team fight presence. But this is where the Solar Scarabs, in my opinion, started to flounder a little bit in their draft last time around, was around these last two. I'm hoping to see something that fits their style, a standard support, something that can get the fight started for you, because once the team fight actually starts up, when there's more than just one or two people grouped up from the Camelot Kings, as of now, the Solar Scarabs are going to struggle to initiate the fights. Dazzling Offensive, already a great initiation tool, but just having that might not be enough on its own, so I'd like to see Bobby playing something that can fit and and deal with some of the weaknesses of what the Solar Scarabs have got with this core 3.
How do you feel about the Khepri for the Scarabs? Because it's still available, and something that has been very highly prioritized up to this point, pretty much all day, but also in this set. It's not anywhere for the Kings to pick it up. They're looking for a jungler and a carry. So realistically, it's just a good support that's still out there for them if they want it.
I mean, Khepri is always going to be, I'd be going against my own word to say if I didn't like it, because I'm always saying it's a plug-and-play god, and I think that is certainly true here as well. Would be single-target initiation, but considering that this is a pick-style composition already from the Solar Scarabs, I think it synergizes well with the Amuzin Cobb as well as the Mercury. And it's going to allow Scream on this Mercury to get even more aggressive in the early portions of the game. So I think Khepri would fit that style pretty well, and I think it would round out this draft decently.
We'll see where they go. Jingwei locked in for the Kings.
Be sure to grab
and
some
everything
brew.
up to this point for the King, like this just all feels very standard. You've got your mage that does a lot of burst. You got a warrior who can bully in lane and then take a lot of damage late game. You got a Mojo who can heal and does a lot of setup. A Jingwei, all of that feels very good. Baron Samedi and the Ho Yi, and you didn't seem too happy, or maybe that was the opposite, and it was very happy. I couldn't tell when the Baron.
What's that say about my face? Oh no!
I couldn't tell which one you were. If that was like a "oh, I can't believe they did it," or a "oh, I can't believe they did it."
I am concerned for this Solar Scarabs draft. I mean, double hunter composition's not poor, but it's a quad fizz draft with Baron Samedi being your only source of magic damage. It's better than what we've seen in the past. Like Khepri being the only magical for you is never really a great feeling, but I don't know. Just concerned about this draft's ability to get to the late game again. We are looking at a composition from the Solar Scarabs that could very easily get barreled over, just like we saw in Game 1. And the Camelot Kings have got themselves a draft that can do it just as easily, if not even more so, assuming that this Vamana is headed for the jungle. Captain Twig should be able to just W key literally everyone on the Solar Scarabs except for Amaterasu. The additional movement speed that she gets should allow her to avoid the Colossal Fury for the most part, but just concerned because looking at this draft from the Scarabs, if the Camelot Kings want to get aggressive, and I'm thinking they will throughout the early game, Amuzin Cobb, sitting duck, Baron Samedi, sitting duck, Mercury for the most part, sitting duck inside of his own jungle, I am concerned. I'd like to see the Solar Scarabs be the aggressors. I think that's the only way that they can get out ahead of this is if that they're getting the ball in their own court early on and then transitioning towards those objectives and utilizing this double hunter composition. But in like an even state in a 5-on-5, which is the Camelot Kings bread and butter, get to that 20-minute mark, just farm up until then, I am concerned about the Solar Scarabs 5-stack and their ability to fight in that type of engagement.
So, from what I'm gathering, and I just want to double-check here, you're worried about the Scarabs' early game, and then their transition into the mid-game, based on how that goes, and also their 5-on-5 late game.
I'm worried about a lot of stuff.
It sounds like
I've got concerns.
To me, it sounds more like you really like what the Kings have drafted here.
Well, it's just standard Smite over there.
I mean, yeah, they're just Vamana in the jungle. That's not full standard.
I mean, like compared to like an Erlong Shen jungle, you're operating the same way.
In fact, maybe even better. You've got a knock-up versus that guy. He got his taken away. Vamana has been popular here. Although we were feeling it maybe more popular with the Ola runs on the other side, things like that, when you could just, hey, cool, I'm CC immune and I'm still going to chase you down. Does that immunity come and play a big factor this time around, or is it just the beatdown?
Well, considering the Solar Scarabs have got two primary initiators, Amaterasu, that's not going to work against Vamana.
Nope.
That is a very long-channeled CC immunity. And Baron Samedi having the multi-target pull-in, but the single-target stun. I mean, Vamana can just arm check him, just stiff arm him, like walk past him in a team fight, be like, all right, your stun's done, and I'm going to continue the fight on my own. So I think there is some pretty decent opportunity there.
All right, well, let's see. Can the Kings take it 2-0, or the Scarabs push us to 3? Let's find out here.
And the Scarabs are going to need to push back hard up against the Camelot Kings after a Game 1 beatdown. It will be Scary D going to the Amaterasu inbound on the Baron for the Solar Scarabs. And it's going back to a little bit of what you were talking about with Scary D, you know, a very seasoned warrior player. I'm one of those premier gods for him over there, Charlie. So making sure that he gets something that he's comfortable on is going to be at least a good first step for the Scarabs.
Yeah, I've been watching Scary D on Ama for years, man. The runarounds, just for so long on this Amaterasu, just a great player, and he knows how to make the best use of the kit. We were talking about it during Picks and Bans, and you said, you know, you thinking Baron to solo or Baron to support, which one? And I'm like, it better be. It better be Amaterasu to Scary D. That's what I want to see, so I'm very happy that that's what we're getting to witness. Both going to teleport, which means there could be some room. I mean, last game Scream tried to camp Variety a lot, and we saw it work out twice, but we saw it not work out a lot more. This time around, I think it's going to be a better look as long as Variety doesn't get off to like this crazy lead, because the Merc just so global, and Scary D already finding a ton of pressure. I'm just going to have a good time in this lane as long as you're using those silences effectively and not getting put behind.
Yeah, Variety pushed back pretty far. Those Bluestone going to make sure that those minions stay aggroed onto Variety for quite some time. He's at least able to get some return poke to Scary D and even get the first wave advantage. Now level 2 means that he's got some extra abilities, 2 more, in fact, to be able to continue to put the poke back up against Variety. Now on the desk, they were talking about cool things that came out in the 20s. You know, they were talking about polish and peanut butter, I think. I found one more thing. Sliced bread. And that's pre-sliced bread. Like how we go to the grocery store, we pick up a loaf of bread and it's got it all sliced. 1928.
Wow. Now the phrase, that's the greatest thing since
sliced bread means that's the greatest thing since 1928.
Yeah, now I know exactly what the timeline would be for that.
We're almost 100 years since sliced bread came out, now that I think about it.
Wow. Well, you know what? Happy century birthday to sliced bread. Either way, I want to see Scream get very active on this Mercury at level 5. Before then, I don't expect him to be overextending too much. With Sonic, never mind. I lied. He's obviously going to gank Variety here and try to grab him with that special delivery. We'll see how it goes.
The dash does connect for both of them, but Variety's is not the one that wanted to hit. Instead, it's going to be Scream and Scary D teaming up for first blood for the Solar Scarabs. The Camelot Kings getting aggressive once again in the duo lane. They're not going to find anything there. So, first up for the Scarabs, got to be at least a good step in the right direction.
Yeah, I got to be honest with you. I don't know if I'm playing King Arthur wrong or if Variety. I mean, I think Variety there regretted leveling the 2-second instead of that third ability. You get 2 different dashes when you level your third ability. When you go your second ability, you get a slow and a smaller dash. I think he was just trying to find the kill onto Scary D, and that's why he did it. But he might have just lived there if he had his third ability. I think being able to spin away from that damage could have been a good hit. But either way, there was the special delivery to cancel out one of them. So Variety's better than me. Let's just trust him and say, you know what, he got ganked. He's level 3 now. Captain Twig is trying to steal away as much as the jungle as possible, as we saw that invade. And Scream might be able to catch him here, but the 1v1 damage, he's just going to ignore him. I don't even think you want to fight him on it right now.
I don't even know if he knows that he was back there at that point. Just caught looking the wrong direction, didn't see the back animation. It's a fight for the purple buff that goes to the Camelot Kings as far as the buff is concerned. So some XP stripped away from Stewart and Inbound once again on this duo lane side. And even despite the fact that Variety died for first blood, he's the one who hits level 4 before the Scarabs.
Yeah, I think, you know what, he's going to be just fine in the lane. I don't think that the kill is going to net that much. It was just the first blood bounty going over the way of Scary D. Once he gets that Golden Blade online, we'll be able to clear the wave just much faster, but I don't imagine we're going to see any solo kills here. King Arthur just so survivable. Until Scream shows up with Sonic Boom, Variety probably not in the worst position. Maybe his jungle could help him out and ward behind the tower. That's your best option to just know. If this Mercury is behind the enemy tier 1, charging up an ult, I want to know about it. I could put a little 50-cent ward there to know, and BMT is wrapping around here. But Scream, pretty quick on this Mercury, should be just fine.
They'll be able to disperse, at least for the time being. Dual lane has evened out its pressure, and solo lane very similarly. Variety, without having access to a blue buff, as his got stolen away. Sure, Scary D lost his, but he's able to at least pick up the one that they had stolen prior. So Variety going to have to sit under this tier 1 tower for a little while longer. But once I imagine he gets that first item online, gets that sovereignty, Variety should be just fine in this lane.
I've been running the situation in my head. You know, like, if Amaterasu levels her 3, you can silence out one of the spins, and maybe that's the reason he really didn't want to put the point in that third ability first. Even if you get an extra bit of dash, the special delivery cancels one, the silence from Ama cancels the other one, that could be even worse. So I just don't want to go on record to say that Variety did something wrong. I definitely don't think that was the case. I just think he got a little over-aggressive and got punished for it. Scary D might be getting punished as to use the ultimate to steal that away. The chase down's no good, and Scream's here to help out just in case.
Yeah, Scream will be there to bail Scary D out. Scary D does hit level 6 off of that invade, so now the pressure is back over for the Solar Scarabs solo laner. And we spent a lot of time on this side of the map compared to what we're normally used to for an SPL game, and that's just because that's where all the action has really been happening. Is Scream has been trying to put pressure onto Variety, and Captain Twig trying to alleviate some of that. We saw a blue buff counter invade earlier on by Captain Twig, but doesn't seem he was able to do the same for his teammate this time around.
Yeah, I just don't think Captain Twig wants to match that pressure because he's never going to be able to get any ultimate damage off onto an Amaterasu. There is a few good targets for that Colossal Fury. That's not going to be one of them, though. We'll grab Captain Twig, and Scream will just ult away and not really want to deal with it because the Kraken was there. And that's something that you can hit on to just about anyone. You have to watch out whenever BMT is here. He's got that Charon's coin. He's got the Bumba Spear. I'm assuming Doom Orb not too far off either.
It's going to be almost a 3-man split for the back camps, just so that way Captain Twig can find some extra farm of his own. Level 7 for the mid laners.
That's so mean.
Veronic and Captain Twig. I mean, this is what Genetics does all the time. Every single time it seems that we pan over to Genetics playing this god, he's pushing minions off to the side of a lane, pushing minions back at a Phoenix line. It's just what we see so many times out of Yemoja players, and Genetics specifically.
Did you see Hazer's cringe SPL tier list?
Yes.
Was Genetics top tier?
I do not remember if he was or not.
Well, what I just saw, I mean, he's up against an AMC, to be fair, but Genetics is quite literally just moving the minions so that Veronic misses his clear. Netroid, though, could be in some trouble. Scream misses the dash, and he has the ult available.
It's a 2v1. Airstrike
going
hits Scream.
in.
Netroid can get it. He finds one more auto. Doesn't find the one against the wall. And now with backup from the support, it's Stewart on the run. The beads are gone, but the beads are not necessary for Netroid. He will just take down Stewart in the 1v2 turn 2v1. For a flip side, the Camelot Kings are on the board.
Yeah, Netroid had beads and used ult offensively. That's just a gank you don't want to see. I mean, if Scream lands the dash, maybe gets the beads himself, but either way, took so much damage during that, and that's probably why we see him more so on the right side of the map. Very survivable is this Jingwei, but also able to outplay a fair bit. You have so much mobility, and it looks like Inbound's not going to spend any time over there either. Came over to right lane, seeing if maybe Scaredy needed some help. The blue buff has been all his, though. They're just using that dazzling offensive to invade the buff, making sure to confirm it with the shield, and maybe we'll see a Sonic Boom coming in that side of the map.
Variety gets hit by the Sonic Boom, and this should be an easy 1-2 combo for the Scarabs, too. The dash has been caught by Variety. The second spin won't get him far enough. It's Scary D with another kill for the Solar Scares. And Captain Twig now in a 3 versus 1. Has that Colossal Fury. Does he have the mana to use it, though, is the question. Yes, he does, right at the moment that he needed to guarantee that he can't get pulled in by a coffin. The Scarabs now have 2 kills up, but only a very small 500 gold lead so far.
Yeah, and Stewart is on the run from Genetics, just trying to juke out as much as possible. While we saw Scream putting a ton of pressure on the right lane, getting Scary D ahead, Genetics is putting a good amount of pressure onto the duo lane, trying to get Netroid ahead. Looking at the late game carry potential in Ama and Jingwei, I definitely would prefer the Jingwei late game, but Ama's still so annoying, and from ahead, so difficult to deal with. She's very slippery, J-Max. She's so speedy, and with the Golden Blade already picked up, she's going to be zooming around the map.
Yeah, going to be a difficult god to deal with. I mean, there was a meta where we were seeing her plus the Morgan to give you double Amaterasu, no matter whether that was being played support or solo for that god. And it just made it so difficult for teams to deal with because, sure, you can beads or Aegis away one dazzling offensive, and then, hey, here's a second one right around the corner. But for now, the Camelot Kings have effectively lost all pressure on the right side. So if you're Captain Twig at this point, do you continue trying to help Variety get back in this game, or do you avert your attention elsewhere?
Yeah, I gotta be honest, Variety is not unused to playing this style of getting camped, so I don't think you have to help him out too much. Captain Twig is going to, though, and it looks like we might see a brawl here.
Double knock-up for a double knock-up. Sonic Boom charged up by Scream, but he's on the wrong side of the fight. Dazzling offensive for Scary D to go back in, only finds the stun against Captain Twig. The Colossal Fury not back up yet for this Vamana. So Captain Twig and Variety will have to retreat back to their blue buff, which they can finally drop for Variety, and maybe a drop on the inbound. The Coffin will immune the knockup from the Kraken, but Big Man Tings is going to give a heal back because of that heal from inbound. And with Captain Twig here, inbound should go down. Sonic Boom off the mark, inbound low, and inbound finally falls down. Captain Twig credited, and maybe Scream as well as he dashes as fast as he can away. Captain Twig's got to close a lot of distance to grab Scream. Does have the dash to get through. And then the Umbrella Ring after. That's going to be a kill for Captain Twig and a double.
Yeah, I thought maybe he didn't even have the dash to chase that one down. But Veronica's trying to defend a little bit of these camps. And Scary D's also making that rotation. And we saw the dash in. Variety could be in some trouble as well. Veronica still has the Stinger and it hits.
Stinger does stop the spin, but Genetics is here with the heal. Stinger drops down, but Veronica will not be able to pick that one up. So Captain Twig, who's been stripped of a lot of his farm on this right side because of the pressure of Scary D and Scream, managed to pick up a double kill during that fight and get himself out.
Yeah, honestly, it was a good play by Inbound. He got a little bit caught out by the Riptide, used the life of the party mitigations to just immune that Kraken as much as possible and survived pretty well. But then the Rivers of Puke after the fact, and then Captain Twig rotating in. There's only so much that a level 6 Baron can do in an instance like that to survive, even with the shell being popped in the Spirit Robe. It just wasn't enough. So after that, Scream, I think if the Sonic Boom connected, maybe keeps Inbound alive a little longer, but ends up overextending too, and Captain Twig gets to pick up 2 kills, has the Stone Cutting Sword online, is going to be moving faster than pretty much anyone on the map, as well as just doing a ton of damage. Where all of this was happening, Big Man Tings, he hit level 12.
Oh, so he did. We've been so dialed in on the solo and the jungle, and even the dual lane at times for the Kings and the Scarabs, that I kind of forgot that mid lane even existed for a moment there. That's the first real skirmish we've seen outside of one of these 2 side lanes. And with an 0-0-1, Big Man Tings has that level 12. Pyromancer started by the Camelot Kings, and they were down 500 gold earlier on. Brought themselves back in this game now to an even point. XP slightly in favor of the Camelot Kings 10 minutes in.
Yeah, that was the first Quacken we've gotten to see the all game, is because he hasn't really needed any sort of fight. But despite the fact that he is level 12, still a little bit behind in gold to Scary D, the highest farm in the game. But Scream, another ult off the mark.
Boom off, and he's caught out away from the Rivers. Netroid rotates over, and he catches the dash out for the Kraken at a Big Man Tings to put Scream in the grave a second time. What coordination by the Camelot Kings to separate that fight.
And it looks like Stewart made the rotation in and will stun out Captain Twig, but that Colossal Fury was available, and Captain Twig gets the zoom on out of there. And I hate to correct you, J-Mac, but that was the Quacken.
No, you will not catch me calling it the Quacken mid-call.
But he said release the Kraken.
That's what he says. That's not what I said.
No, he says release the Quacken.
Right, and I said release the Kraken.
I'm aware of what you said. It doesn't matter. It was a good kill. It was a good kill from BMT.
We're going nowhere. I'm sorry. I derailed it at the start of the game, and it's just going to go downhill from the rest of there.
It doesn't matter. He's getting some stacks on that Charon's coin, and just go. Every Poseidon mid is going the same exact build. It doesn't matter who you're against. You will see Charon's coin into Bumbas, into Doom Orb, into Toxic Blade. It could differ after the fact. Some people like the Staff of Mirrodin. Either way, you are spamming your cooldowns, and you want to be fast as possible. And there's a reason for it. It's because it works. The faster you are on this Poseidon, the less you're going to be getting hit by these abilities. Scream has been off the mark with the past 2 Sonic Booms, and it's hard to lock down a Poseidon, man. He pops Trident and just zooms.
You do be zooming. Solar Scarabs are farming themselves back up after that loss in the mid. Still, a little bit of golden XP over to the Camelot Kings, but Big Man Tings, the fact that he's level 14 at this point and level 11 Scream is trying to pick a fight. He'll get the beads out, and that's a big win for Scream, being 3 levels down to the person he is trying to fight. But maybe a rallying back for the Camelot Kings. There are 4 Scarabs, actually all 5s technically, on this mid-left side of the map.
Yeah, it'd be really nice for Scream if he could back and get a beads, then he wouldn't be in so much trouble every time the Kraken came through. It's just true CC. The Gold Fury, though, could be in some trouble because no one's that close. Stewart is stepping up to this.
Stewart, Scream does have ultimate. The sun's rained down. And the Solar Scarabs do steal away the Gold Fury. Can they find their way out of the fight? There is no fight to even be had. It was just the major look from Scream to steal that one right from under the Camelot Kings.
Yeah, I love that play from Stewart to drop the Suns, because if the Camelot Kings wanted to look for the fight after the fact, they would have to reset the objective. With constant DPS in the Suns, you can't reset it. You have to just commit in 50-50. Lucky there by Scream to be able to confirm that one. We saw the Ricochet send in as well, so I was wondering who was the one that got the last hit, and it was the Mercury. So not being able to find these ults, but got the beats on BMT right before that, and getting the gold for that's going to help them out today in this game. Only 200 gold, but only 200 gold down are the Scarabs at the moment. Scary D still 3 levels ahead of Variety.
Yeah, Variety's not been having the greatest time in solo lane. Did take the tier 1 tower first, so if you ask anybody in my games, well, I took the first tower. That means I've won the lane. But can the Camelot Kings win the team fight? Scary D to half. Sonic Boom hits 1. Captain Twig in danger. Does have Colossal Fury still to turn this fight back around with the help of his support. Genetics' walls have been on point this entire set. Inbound kick back by yet another Riptide. A second Riptide to hold him in. Big Man Tings. Credit to the kill, but Genetics, credit to the setup for all of this.
Yeah, Scary D was able to get out there, but everyone else falling. Scream commits so much damage there to Captain Twig trying to find the kill. But the Colossal Fury after the fact, just too much. You don't have enough anti-heal to burn through this Vamana just yet. The Brawler's Beat Stick from Baronic is really all you're playing off of right now. I assume we'll see a Curse Donk picked up eventually, but anytime Vamana is your main target, you better make sure he's either 100% anti-healed or Curse Donked. Neither of those were the case, so Captain Twig is now 3-0, lives to see another day, and Down falls the Mercury 0-3.
Charlie, I still can't believe the fact that I know that Yemoja got nerfed this patch. I know in 9.6 she got nerfed. But that has not stopped any of these teams from still looking insane on this god. It blows my mind that these supports are able to get this god so freely. Why are players allowing, why are players allowed like Genetics or Wrong You still allowed to get this Yemoja, Trelly?
Well, you have to get something equal or more value to make it worth, right?
Did they do it?
The Solar Scarabs grabbed the Mercury first pick. That's what they were going for. And at the moment, 0-3 is the Mercury. The Yemoja is 0-0 and 6. So you tell me who's doing more impact at the moment. Late game, you have Mercury crits, right? And so that's still an option.
Okay,
Scream
we're good.
has been hitting his ult as of recent. We saw 2 off the mark, and then we saw 2 landing. Still committing a little bit and dying in that regard. So wants to be a little bit safer and probably get some rage stacks online. I'm still not ready to count out the Mercury just yet. And you still have this Titan on the map, this level 15 Amaterasu that's going to rotate in and help you out in the later stages of the game. You're just up against a level 16 Poseidon, who is also going to help you out.
Yeah, level 16 Poseidon. Toxic Blade finished up by both Big Man Tings and by Captain Twig. So 2 different applicators of that anti-heal for the Camelot Kings. But now, still waiting for Scream to go back to base. You're talking about maybe picking up a beads earlier so you have less to deal with the Kraken. But because he went for that blink, if he does get beads, imagine those beads get caught out. No Aegis to get away from the Kraken. He's going to be relying on some of those shells from his team to bail him out. And all the while, Camelot Kings will grab the Pyromancer variety, dashes in, finds a level 9 inbound, and drops him into the waiting arms of the rest of the Camelot Kings. The coffin is his own coffin at this point. Now with all 5 of the Kings in the mid lane, Scream might want to run.
Yeah, I think he's going to have to get on out of there, and inbound would be the only one to fall. I thought maybe because the Kraken was used on the Pyromancer that he would be able to escape, but just too much damage coming from the Camelot Kings. It doesn't matter if you're using your biggest burst ability on the Pyromancer, because you just have so much sustain and just all together damage that you can't live through that right now. At level 9 Baron. Tier 2 tower is going to be looked at here. I thought maybe they would stop their onslaught, but they want even more gold, and they're not going to stop this. Trebuchet has joined them as well.
Trebuchet will get one and the last shot to take down the mid-tier 2. And Charlie, just watching all these SPL games so far with the Trebuchet being introduced, we watched 2 full weeks of Masters, we've watched the first full week of the SPL, 2 weeks of SCC, and now into the second week of SPL. This has been the best use of the Trebuchet that I've seen so far out of any team. I mean, the Camelot Kings are making the most of this objective on the map.
Yeah, well, if you remember on the very first waiting room when the Trebuchet got introduced, I made the hot take that I thought it would be more impactful than the Interceptor, the shocky boy, if you will. And people, they nodded their finger at me. They said probably not. And I said, if you can push this and make objectives off and see how you're able to group up using the Trebuchet, maybe the value will be there. We'll have to wait and see what these teams do. Finally, we're seeing the Camelot Kings find it, scream off the mark, off the Blink special delivery, and we'll just run away. Unfortunately, no, but now Variety's here and got the beads down so early.
Beads are down. Scream has to back away. Ricochet off the mark by Stewart as he jumps over the wall back to safety. The Camelot Kings poising out to maybe try and go for a Fire Giant or maybe just a bait and a pick if they can find it. Netroid and Big Man Tings not at the fight just yet. Instead, they're going to clear out the red buff before they rejoin. But almost all 3 mid-tier 1 towers are down. We're going a little bit slower pace than we had last game. I mean, last game they were knocking at the door of the Phoenix at this point, that being the Camelot Kings. For this time around, at least, it's a startup of the Oni Fury with Stewart walking by, and now Stewart walking away. The Oni Fury picked back up by the Camelot Kings, and this one should go to them. Don't see anybody who could grab that one out.
Yeah, that's going to be an easy objective call. I mean, right when Scream wasted the beads, or didn't waste the beads, was forced to use the beads before that engage even started, it was over. The Mercury, not tanky enough to live through these fights, and certainly not survivable enough to just eat any of the damage the Camelot Kings have. In an ideal world, you get a beads down, you ult in, you have just uncontested damage, you can get some crits off. But without beads, Mercus would immediately get blown up. Can't ult to the backline, so Scream can't be effective in these fights for another minute and 40 seconds. So we're going to see a little bit of downplay here from the Solar Scarabs, maybe just staying back, trying to defend as much as possible, sort of stop the bleeding, if you will. They want to get as much gold as they can, and they want to just dial it back. If this Fire Giant gets looked at, they'll step up, but anything else, they don't want to fight this.
Inbound only level 10. Had enough gold to upgrade to his second relic, but hasn't been able to build any more items since picking up that relic dagger. Variety will at least give a little bit of a heal over to the Scarabs after being hit by inbound. This Greater Scorpion is what the Kings have been teasing around quite often through here. Riptides Both off the mark by Genetics. Not going to find Scary D this time around. Snake does find Genetics, but unfortunately, Variety walks into a Riptide that punts him right back to his team. And now the Solar Scarabs going on the offensive. Scream wrapping around the top side of the fight. Big Man Tings will be the first one to spot him. Variety in the middle of 4. Scary D in the middle of the other 4. And the River's Rebuke will catch him out. The Kraken off the mark, but Scary D will still go down. Captain Twig, not enough healing to get back through the onslaught of damage from Baronic and the other carries of the Solar Scarabs.
Yeah, Inbound had a clutch route there. BMT was ready to chase this one down, and Inbound still could be in trouble. One more. No, the Riptide will not be there. I was thinking if Genetics could catch him, might be a little bit of trouble. And Scream's getting wrapped around here. Variety wants this as well. Stewart's going to have his back, but it looks like they might try to turn on him.
Variety gets thrown against the wall. Some good crit damage, but Variety will be able to spin by as the rest of his teammates take out the Tier 2 tower. So now only one tower is left standing on the map. It's the Solar Scarabs duo lane Tier 2, but that one's being pushed down by some of those Oni minions from earlier on. The Solar Scarab's not going to give it up. Scream goes in with an ultimate against Variety. Whirlpool will slow down Scream, and the damage from Big Man Tings is just way too much for Scream to handle. The Kings put up their 9th kill.
Yeah, this is what I was talking about. Baronic is in trouble.
No!
Yeah, you can't push up at this point. They got a nice pick, a 1-for-1 trade. Scream tries to get aggressive there, but is not tanky enough and doesn't do enough damage to dive the backline right now. 7,000 gold in favor of the Camelot Kings. This Fire Giant will certainly go down, and because Captain Twig spawned back in, he'll get that Fire Giant around his waist as well. Variety is just standing here menacingly, making sure no one can step up for the steal. And the Solar Scarabs are playing scrap duty. They're looking for as much gold as they can. That is uncontested. That left wave seems pretty good. Inbound can grab a support buff, but there's not enough farm in the world to get the Scarabs back in this game right now. They have to sit under these Phoenixes. I don't even think they can contest Tier 2s right now, given the lead that we're seeing. A 4-level lead in support, the biggest on the map right now, and that's the Emojis is just doing too much.
Yeah, if I'm any team in the league looking at this match, now I said that in game number 1, but this time I'm going to be very specific. I'm not giving Genetics this god again. Period. Blanket statement. I'm not giving Yemoja to Genetics. I'm not giving Yemoja to Wrong You either from the Leviathans, but in this game specifically with how Genetics has been playing these Riptides, utilizing these ultimates, this man's insane. That's all I'm going to say is he has been playing lights out on this god in both of these games.
Yeah, I got to agree with you, and I don't know if I want to give BMT the Poseidon either. He's just been farming so effectively, and this is like last time where it was just forcing so much on a Variety, and I was so sure that he couldn't die. I'm still pretty sure about it, but Captain Twig's on the rotation over. Maybe they think this is a 1v1 or 1v2, and once the mana shows up, it might get a little worse for him.
Blink by Captain Twig, and Scream was basically already dead by that point. Ultimate comes out from Scary D to hit Captain Twig.
The Scarabs
it's now
are
a
here.
3 versus 2. The Thorns and the Colossal Fury popped by Captain Twig, but his health bar is melting fast. Stewart and Baronic are able to take down that one. Not quite. Needed a couple more in hands, and they won't do so, but Charlie, while that was happening on the right, left side Phoenix is gone.
Yeah, Genetics, BMT, and Netroid said, all right, you guys have fun. 2v3 over there.
They did.
They get the kill for Scream. The Phoenix still goes down. And Genetics is like, I'm not done. I still want another Trebuchet, so I'm going to get as many of those offerings as I can on the way out. And we can do what we want with that. So, unfortunate play by the Solar Scarabs. If they are able to kill Captain Twig, if they were able to find a kill on a Variety, maybe you say Phoenix for 2 kills, that's worth it. But they got nothing. And if anything, they lost because they lost Scream as well as that left side Phoenix. So just more and more gold going in the pockets of the Camelot Kings. 11,000 in their favor right now. And that Primal Fury is also on the menu. So it looks like they're just going to keep trying to climb that gold even more.
I find it funny that we're now 24 minutes in the game and Genetics is only just now picking up an Emperor's Armor when there's only 2 Phoenixes left for them to take down. I mean, sure, any amount of slowing down Phoenix damage and whatnot is going to be good in the event that for some reason, I guess the Kings have to defend under one of their own Phoenixes. Will be a nice little boon, but it's just funny that we're this late in the game with how few structures are left.
You find that funny. I find funny that last game, 5 minutes ago, this game was over.
That is also pretty funny.
Yeah, so the Camelot Kings are doing worse than they were last game, and they're doing pretty damn good this game.
Yeah, so. Yeah, they set their record a little too early. They got a PB, but now they're kind of in one of their trenches of their own. Camelot Kings up into the Phoenix. 5 members of the Scarabs now back. Scream without an ultimate. Variety without a lot of his health bar. He'll be pulled back in, and Stewart will find the first casualty. The Kraken just off the mark.
Lives.
And Inbound will make it out of the team fight. Will the mid lane Phoenix live through? It will not do so. The Camelot Kings lose their solo, but they pick up a bird.
Yeah, Variety doesn't realize how much protections are being shredded when that stinger comes their way. So Veronica still has enough damage and enough HP to say we can still find picks onto the tanks. Not everyone is unkillable on that squad, so Variety will go down a third time this game, but the mid bird also dies. So are you happy trading your solo laner out for, when you have this big of a lead? No. For a mid Phoenix, I'm sure the Camelot Kings will take it because still the bottom 3 on that roster are undying. Netroid, Genetics, and BMT are able to do as much damage as this team really needs. You have the Bumbus Hammers procs. BMT's going to get a second Kraken up very shortly, even if the chase did ensue there. So they're probably pretty happy about that one.
Gotta imagine so. Captain Twig, or I should say Big Man Tings, almost done with his full build. Staff of Mirrodin, the last one to be completed as far as his main build items go. Then obviously still relics after. The Solar Scarabs did get the Tier 1 tower before all of that happened in mid, so they mitigated at least some gold, got themselves a little bit of extra pocket change. But it's just not enough. I mean, the Solar Scarabs are down 12,000 gold, 26 minutes in, and all that gold is very relevant still this early in the game, especially with the start that the Scarabs had, the momentum that Scream and Scary D had built up. The Camelot Kings have just pumped the brakes hard on that.
Yeah, I would say it's about time you start hiding around corners looking for a pick if possible, because the Scarabs have shown they have the DPS to blow someone up. If Baronic Stinger connects and you're able to shred some protections, you can certainly kill one of these tanks. You can certainly find a pick on a Variety again. But with the way the Camelot Kings are playing right now, BMT is frontlining, just zooming around the jungle, making sure no one's even close to this Fire Giant. Not quite time for EFG, still going to have to wait about 4 minutes for that, and Scary D's in left lane. He does actually have to teleport up, but another Sonic Boom onto Variety here. Stinger hits.
Okay, so that's three to kill Variety. They used 3 ultimates to do so. So that's a win for the Solar Scarabs to find Variety.
They gotta get there quick.
But can the Camelot Kings close out with the Fire Giant? It's a collapse in from the Solar Scarabs. The Kings, they get the Fire Giant. How many do they lose on the retreat out? Captain Twig has turned back around. The Alchemist then popped. The Captain Twig is out. The Kraken does find inbound. Scary D's getting melted, and the Rivers keep him inside for Big Man Tings to close out the kill. A 1-for-1 trade. Both solos gone, and Netroid will go right back in. Inbound with no path out. It's Captain Twig with the kill. The Riptide to close in the gap on Baronic, surrounded by 4 and take it out. It's a double for Big Man Tings.
And now maybe, I was going to say Stewart's back might be getting stopped here. Scream has to try. He
Oh,
blinks into
no.
it. He doesn't have beats though.
1-for-1 does get it. Scream takes out Big Man Tings, so that's 2 for 3, but there's still 3 on the Camelot Kings. Right side Phoenix goes down, and now it's going to be up to Scream and Stewart
Variety
to defend
STP.
against. That was actually a pretty nice crit from Stewart to maybe slow this one down. The Camelot Kings with a minion wave in tow. They've got the damage to do so. Variety back up off of cooldown, back off of his respawn, and there's not much left that Stewart and Scream can do. Game number 2, about 8 minutes slower, but just as convincing. The Camelot Kings 2-0 the Scarabs.
Man, and they started fighting back too. I mean, Scream was a little bit off point with the Sonic Booms all game. Started finding them, even found a nice pick onto BMT before that siege begun. But the Camelot Kings just looked untouchable that game. The farm, their farm game is always good, right? Their objective play is always good. But this game in particular, they just found so much success early, and it seemed like they just couldn't get anything going in the Solar Scarabs, that is, except for a little bit of success in mid and the solo lane. Scary D was ahead, but it just wasn't enough.
Yeah, I mean, they got Scary D up, 3 levels, almost 4 levels at one point in the solo lane, but there was no pressure in the dual lane. Baronic didn't have pressure in the mid lane, and Variety was just existing. He wasn't dying a whole lot. He was just existing long enough for team fights to finally break out, and then inbound gets picked out in the mid lane, and that's really where we saw that first fight back from the Camelot Kings. Again, a slower win for them, but once they were able to kind of get their feet back under them, Camelot Kings just ran away with this set.
Yeah, I think the fact that you're calling the 27, 28-minute
slow game
a slow win is just speaking volumes for what we just saw. So just completely shut out. Well played by the Camelot Kings. We saw some shines of greatness there from the Solar Scarabs, but it just wasn't enough.
Camelot Kings with a 2-0 to close out their week, to close out our week, and to close out our cast. That's going to be it for me and Charlie. We'll throw it over to Gore and Mifflin to close out the day.
Thanks so much, J-Mac. Yeah, it's me and Miff as we close this out. The Kings looking impeccable today, coming in a very clean game number 1, 19 minutes, and then, oh no, Mifflin, 8 more minutes, and they still find a dub there in game number 2. And a lot of it is exactly like what they just said on the cast, a little bit of kind of the bait and switch, pull you in, haha, now we'll kill you, and they did a lot of that. The Jingwei, I think the Vamana early on, the Poseidon early on as well, just thwarted the Scarabs when they got aggressive.
Yeah, I mean, I had said during the P's and B's that that draft from the Solar Scarabs really needed to get out ahead. I felt like that's how that composition is going to work, especially against this Yemoja. I failed to bring it up, but not only is it a quad fizz draft, but it's also a draft that just can't deal with Yemoja walls at all, and that rears its head a couple of times throughout these team fights. But the Solar Scarabs did so. They got out ahead early. They didn't hold on to that lead for a super long time, but they had one nonetheless. But once the Camelot Kings were grouped up as 5, the team fight was just vastly superior. Maybe 1 or 2 missed ultimates from Scream opens up the door, but once that door was opened, it was never reopened for the Solar Scarabs. I do want to sing the praises of Netroid. That dude went absolutely insane this game. Multiple ganks coming his way, and he's turning them around 2 versus 1, and then buying time for his team to rotate through. Generally, when we see a Jingwei get ganked, it's airstrike to your own tower. She was airstriking in every single time. The Camelot Kings, as a whole, just look really good here. And even even the KDs that don't look great, I know Variety had a couple of unfortunate stumbles throughout this match, but when he fell down, it was, hey, I got my team a Fire Giant. Hey, I got my team a Gold Fury. Hey, I'm zoning out. And at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what your KD looks like as long as you got a dub next to it.
I mean, what was it you had called them? You had mentioned, like, you know, if the Kings are coming in for a play and it's like someone's going to die, it's probably going to be Variety.
He does
but
the most
it
for
is
this team.
just because that means his sacrifice, you know, flourishes the rest of the team. They all get to grow from that one and find a lot. 17.8k damage there for the solo laner. 18,000, almost 19k from Big Man Tings. Still very heavy-sided over there, but I think, as you had highlighted, the duo lane, to me, stands out the most. Genetics, some insane Riptides, but like you said, just almost obsessively going in on the Jingwei. It was incredible to watch what those two were able to accomplish. And that's after a Chiron game number 1, so a switch up there back onto the Jingwei. And while it was a slower pace, Mifflin, late game, still hitting the same strides.
Yeah, I mean, Netroid's just an animal, man. The guy's just crazy. And it's always a treat to watch him play. The soloing as ADC for a reason, right? And has a very good performance here. But when you talk about the dual lane, I don't want to, like, say it, but I'm gonna say it.
Okay.
We can't be letting Yemoja through anymore, man.
No.
This god has just been dominating. Sure, Genetics like deserves every bit of praise because he was placing those ultimates well. He was connecting his heals. The Riptides were great. But I feel like everybody in the league is playing Yemoja at a pretty high level, and when you're at the highest level of play, playing one of the best competitive supports Smite has ever seen, it makes it very, very difficult to find those wins against you, and that's exactly what happens with
We
Camelot Kings.
slowly grew, right? We had like 5 players that were like really good Yemojas, then it slowly became 6, then suddenly 7.
Yeah, everybody else was like,
oh,
we need to learn that.
And then by the time we got to the beginning of this year, yeah, it turns out Yemoja is very good. But it is not Genetics that I know of that I saw walk through that door. Instead, it's Netroid standing by for the interview. And so first I want to ask you, a few weeks ago during Masters, when we got to talk to Variety, you guys had been on like a lost streak in scrims, the mental was down, weren't feeling that great. So how's that turnaround felt for you guys over the last like 4 weeks?
It's been feeling pretty good because we realized that we can play better, you know. Before those scrims and after those scrims that went really bad, we knew what were like our weak points and stuff, and we wanted to like beat good teams like Titans, Leviathans, so we just like put on the gas and start screaming like even better.
Well, you've come in now, you're 3-0 so far this phase, plus a pretty decent performance there at Masters as well. How have you felt that the team's been able to transition not only into like 9-5 with the time to kill changes, but also just this meta right now, where it kind of feels like anything can go?
Yes, I mean, the meta right now feels like anyone can win right now. Like a good team can beat any other good team. Even like a team that hasn't been performing that good can win as well. We saw on Bulks as well. They were playing pretty good. But my team has been feeling pretty okay with the meta. Like they kind of like it, but at the same time they hate it. I think Harry was the one that hated the most when it was the ADC meta.
Yeah.
With Uller and stuff, he was like, please.
He's like, look, Ned, like these are all your gods. I don't want to touch them. I don't want to be playing this. I gotta ask you guys though. You know, the second game much more kind of standard. You guys get off to a really early lead, control it, but timing-wise, it was about what we expect for an average Smite game. What was it about game 1 that just let you guys escalate so fast through the match?
I think we had like gods that could pressure around the map pretty good. And also they have like kind of late game gods. For example, like Jingwei. Jingwei is not that this early game god. and I had Chiron, for example, and stuff like that. I feel like my team is able to play around early pressure and late game too, so that kind of helped us a lot.
Well, now you're going to be looking onto the horizon. Again, you've taken down a lot of the teams. You are going to be doing double round robins, though. Are there any teams like coming up that you're going to be facing that your eyes are on specifically?
Yes, well, of course we want to be Titans, like Titans has been like our nemesis so far. We've been against them in the last matches, on the finals, on Masters, and I remember other tournament too. And of course we want to beat them, but if we want to do it, we have to play a good game, Smite,
Well, I'm excited to see it. I'm sure you guys are looking forward to it, but congratulations on your win, man.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time. You can go on and enjoy and celebrate with a nice weekend, because Mifflin, that was the last set we had today. They come in, they just 2-0, and they get to leave. That was a very chill week, I think, for the Kings as they managed to come through. And you can hear, again, looking forward to it, like they recognize where they are at versus where they were. They didn't want to take that loss in the finals at Masters, but other than that, it has been very clean for them. We can take a peek at the schedule, and of course, then the standings to see where these Kings are standing themselves. A nice 2-0. Nothing but 2-0s today. As we started the week with some long ones yesterday, definitely a little bit lengthier, all going 3. Whereas today, like you said, a quick one at that. And I believe we are left with 2 undefeated teams up at the top. The Bolts, as far as I remember, at 3-0. Right there, hovering with the Kings. So when they meet each other, that one's going to be very interesting. The Kings, though, seem to have their eyes more on the Titans than anybody. And of course, the Valkyries down there after today, 0-4, still looking for their first win. But remember, it is double round robin. Everybody's going to be playing each other twice this phase. So that opens up some opportunities for, well, maybe some comebacks.
I wonder how the Olympus Bolts feel about that, right? They're thinking to themselves, we're undefeated. We're right there with you in the seating, and Netroid's only got eyes for the Tartarus Titans.
Yo, what about us?
I mean, Masters champions, I suppose, earn the ire of the Camelot Kings, but I don't know. Those top 3 squads really have just continually impressed, haven't they? The Camelot Kings, I feel like, have been just for years iterating on their style and have recently come into their own. The Olympus Bolts, who have been a streaky team in the past, have more so recently found their consistency. And, well, the Tartarus Titans are just the Tartarus Titans. What more is there to say?
This might be the reason that they're focused in on the Titans, because guess what their first matchup is next week? It's Kings versus Titans, a Masters Finals rematch. The hot hand leaning towards the Kings. The Titans will be playing the Scarabs the day before. The Bolts coming in with a doubleheader as well, Valkyries and Leviathans. And the Valkyries themselves, not just the Bolts, but they'll be playing the Warriors. So a couple of chances maybe to change that 0 to a 1 in multiple aspects here, whether it's a loss appearing for teams or a win appearing for teams.
The Bolts, though?
It'll be very interesting.
That's a tough one.
Well, here's the thing. Last year, Phase 2 in Season 8, the Bolts go on a long 8-set win streak. Right now, they're 3 sets into maybe finding that again. We'll see if maybe they're able to do so. Next week's going to be fun, but for myself, from Mifflin, and of course everyone here at the studio, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.